Thank you very much to welcome you to MedZone African Motives. Today we are going to be on preparation and revision on grade 7. So it is in relation to grade 7, whereby we are going to do Economic and Management Science grade 7, EMS grade 7, as to prepare for term 1 that we are going to write. So we are making the preparations for term 1 that we are going to write. So grade 7, let us be together from the start of this presentation to the end of it. So without wasting much time, let us go straight to question 1, whereby we're going to talk about the history of money. So it says read through the case study and answer the questions that follow. So let's quickly go to the case study. History of money. It says money is so much a part of our everyday lives that it's difficult to imagine how anything is possible without it. All goods and services are generally available at a certain price, worked in the currency of our time. The history of money dates to the beginning of humankind when people use the barter system to trade traditional societies. However, the bartering system had many shortcomings and leading to a cowrie of shells, money, metals, coins, and the promissory notes, paper money, and what we know today as electronic banking transfers. On the 11th February 2013, a new series of banknotes had been introduced which displayed the face of Nelson Mandela. In modern times, we have virtual money such as internet banking and automated teller machine cards. So the electronic digital form of money is used more and more. So you can see that money represents how societies have become more complex and organized over time. Money makes the world go round. So now we are to answer the questions after we went through this case study together. So now we are to answer the questions that follows this case study. 1.1 says define the following terms. So 1.1 is currency. So we are to define currency. So the currency of the country is the type of money, is the type of money used in that country. So we are saying the currency of a country um, is the type of money used in that country. Used in that country. So what it means is that each country uses its own official money. That's what it means. For example, South Africa uses what? Rand. So hope we are together on that. Let's move on. Now we are to define what? Barter. We are to define a barter. So a bartering is the exchange of goods or services for another good or services without using money. That is that. We are saying a bartering is the exchange. Bartering is the exchange of a good or service for another good or service. For another good or service without using money. without using money. So that is what? A barter system. So bartering, that is exchange of goods or service for another goods or service without using money. So it means that people swap items instead of paying cash. For example, swapping a maize for clothes. That is that. So now let us move on. Now we move on to whereby we are asked to define traditional societies. Traditional societies. So we are to define traditional society. So traditional societies used basic methods to hunt and harvest and were self-sufficient. We are saying traditional societies used basic methods to hunt and harvest and were self-sufficient and were self-sufficient. Self-sufficient. That is traditional societies. Meaning to say they produced everything they needed to survive. They produced everything they needed to survive. For example, a community that grows its own crops and hunts for food. So that is that. So now let us move on to 1.14. Now we are to define modern societies. Modern societies. So modern societies are modern societies are industrialized and use technology to produce goods for trade. So that is that. We are saying modern societies are industrialized. Are industrialized and use technology. Use technology to produce goods. To produce goods for trade. So meaning to say, we are saying factories and machines are used to make products. For example, a factory using machines to produce cars. So that is when you're talking about modern societies. Then we are to define now promissory notes. We are to define promissory notes. The promissory notes. So these are promissory notes are legally binding notes promising a payment. So these are promissory notes. So we are saying promissory notes are legally binding notes. Are legally binding notes promising payment. Promising payment. So that is that. So what it means is that the promissory note is a written promise to pay someone else amount by certain date. For example, a buyer signs a note promising to pay 2,000 in 30 days. So that is a promissory note. That's what it means with the promissory note. That is that written notes. That is that written promise to pay someone. That is what we're saying. Promissory notes are legally binding notes promising payment. So now let us move on to 1.2. 1.2 say name two disadvantages of bartering system. That. Name two disadvantages of bartering system. So as we are to name a disadvantage of a bartering system, we can talk of no common measure of value. No common measure of value. So meaning to say there is no fixed way to decide how much something is worth. For example, how many chickens equal to one blanket? So that is that. Also, certain goods cannot be divided. Certain goods cannot be divided. Cannot be divided. Certain goods cannot be divided. Certain goods cannot be divided. For example, before I can even talk about example, when you talk of certain goods cannot be divided, it means some items cannot split without destroying them. Some items cannot split without destroying them. So it means that, for example, you cannot divide a cow into two if you only need half. So that is a drawback, a disadvantage of bartering system. So again, no late payments allowed. No late payments allowed. No late payments allowed. No late payments allowed. So the exchange must happen immediately. You cannot take meat today and promise goods later. No, it is not allowed. Also, storing goods is difficult. Storing goods is difficult. Storing goods is difficult. So goods cannot rot. Goods can rot, expire, or get damaged. So, for example, vegetables spoil if stored too long. So that is that. So now let us move on to another question. Name two functions of money. Name two functions of money. So money is a medium of exchange. Money is a medium of exchange. Money is a medium of exchange. So it means money helps people buy and sell goods easily. For example, paying 50 rand for bread. That is that. Money is a measure of value. Money is a measure of value or unit of account or unit of account or unit of account. So, meaning to say money allows us to put prices on goods. That is that. Also, money is a standard of deferred payment. Money is a standard of a deferred payment. Money is a standard of deferred payment. So it means money allows people to pay debts over. So, for example, paying for a phone in a monthly installments. So that hope we understand when you say money is a standard of a deferred payment. It means money allows people to pay debts over time. Like I've said, can pay a phone in a monthly installments. So that is that. So like you've said, also money is a store of value. Money is a store of value. Money is a store of value. A store of value. So it means money can be saved to use in the future. For example, saving 400 for next month. So let us move on. Now it says give two reasons why banks have introduced electronic banking. Reasons? Give two reasons why banks introduce electronic banking. Electronic banking. So that is to enable 24-hour banking. To enable 24-hour banking. To enable 24-hour banking. So it means you can withdraw or check money anytime. Anytime. For example, using ATMs at night. Also, more secure. That's one of the reasons. More secure. So it means ATM reduces the need to carry large amounts of cash. So that is that. For example, withdrawing only what you need. More cost effective. More cost effective. So meaning to say, banks save money because fewer staff are needed. So example, ATMs replacing loan teller lines. So that is that. So let us move on to another question, 1.5. 1.5. Said name two types of bank cards that are used to make electronic payments. So we have what? Debit card. We have debit card. We also have what? Credit card. Credit card. We are asked to name those two types of banks. So we know debit card. That is when you are talking about money is taken directly from your bank account. That's the debit card. For example, paying for grocery using your debit card. But with credit card, you buy now and pay the bank later. For example, using credit card to buy shoes and pay at the month end. So that is that. So you are to get your 26 marks for question 1. So now let's quickly attend question 2, which is as well a case study. But here we are mainly going to look at needs and wants. So it says read through the case study and answer the questions that follow. The case study, like I've said, is all about needs and wants. So let us go through this case study together. So the case study reads as follows. The Green family lost their home and all their possessions in a fire. So the family consists of David, who is 12 years old, his mother and father, who are in their grandmother, who is 65. So grandmother has a back pain and must sleep in a special bed. Mr. Green has a job as a storeman, but his salary is not enough to afford a car. Therefore, he travels to work by a mini taxi and the two elder children walk to school. Mr. Green looks after the grandmother and the baby daughter and earns a small income by baking biscuits in her oven and selling them to people in the community. Fortunately, They live in a very friendly community where people have come together to help them, providing them with all their basic needs. So now we are to answer the questions now that follows after this case study. Like it says, name 4 items that the community would have to provide for the Green family to satisfy all their basic needs. So that is items needed after a fire. So you know very well when we're talking about basic needs, we are talking about things needed to survive, stay healthy. So we are to name the items that the community would have provided. So that's when you're talking about food. That's when you're talking about water. Or we can talk about clothing. Can talk about shelter. And also we can talk about healthcare. Healthcare, we can talk of sanitation, we cannot talk about support or counseling. So those are the basic needs that you're talking about. Those things needed to survive and stay healthy. So that is that. So now let us come to 2.2. Them 2 items, except the items we mentioned in 2.1, that they fit the grade 7 learner will also need. So that is 2.2 items that they fit the grade 7 learner will also need. So we are talking about items needed for school, as we are told that he is a grade 7 learner. So we can talk of what things learners need to continue learning. We're talking about uniform now. We can talk of uniform. We can talk of books. We can talk of pens. Also, we can talk of sports equipment. Sports equipment. So those are the things. 2.3, what are the primary needs and secondary needs? What are primary needs? So basic or primary needs, we are talking about needs you must have to live and stay safe. So here we are talking about basic or primary needs. So these are needs you must have. You must have to live and stay safe. And stay safe. So, for example, food, water, shelter, and security. But secondary needs, we're talking about ones that make life comfortable. Talking about ones that make life comfortable. Comfortable, but are not essential. But are not essential. So that is that. For example, we can talk of toys, entertainment, branded clothes. So those are not essential. Those are the ones, they just make life comfortable, like you're saying. So now let us move on to 2.4. 2.4 say explain what it means to have limited resources. Limited resources. So limited resources, these are resources are not enough. When we talk of limited resources, we are saying these are resources are not enough to satisfy all needs. Resources are not enough to satisfy all needs. So, for example, not enough money to buy everything you want. So it means you are limited because you cannot afford to buy everything that you want. 2.5. 2.5 say name two specific things of the green family members who would need to carry on with their lives as they did before the fire. So they need extra support of special items to live safely. So example, safety, security, primary health care, special bed, stove, or appliances suited to their needs. So name two specific things some of green family members would need to carry on with their lives as they did before with fire. So we are saying they need extra support or special items to live safely. To live safely. So, for example, we can now talk of safety and security. We can talk of primary health care. Primary health care, can talk of special bed. We talk of special bed and also stove. So that is that. Now let us move on to 2.6. 2.6 says, describe one point how you would help this green family meet their needs if you were one of their neighbors and why. So that is 2.6. So that is helping a family after a fire. So here we can say learners explain how they would help, showing understanding of needs. So here we can say learners explain how they would help, showing understanding of the needs. For example, helping rebuild their shelter because it's a basic need. So we can say helping rebuild their shelter because it is a basic need. It is a basic need. So like I've said here, learners can explain how they would help, showing understanding of the needs. So this is helping a family after a fire. So that is that. Thank you very much for your time. You are to get 50 marks. So make sure that you're going to make use of this presentation as to prepare for you for term 1 that you're going to write. Economic and Management Science, grade 7. Thank you very much for your time.